You ever have a day start off so normal that you don't see the chaos coming? That was me just sipping my coffee on my porch when a teenage boy, no older than 16, walked straight into my driveway and pointed at my Harley. "I'll take that one," he said, as casually as someone ordering lunch. I thought he was joking. I even laughed, but the kid didn't crack a smile. "I'm serious," he said. "Mom said you'd give it to me. She talked to the HOA. I set my mug down. "Excuse me?" He crossed his arms and nodded toward the cul-de-sac. That's when I saw her, Karen, the queen of the HOA, standing there with her arms folded, sunglasses on like she was about to auction off my property. She waved at me like we were best friends. "You must be confused," I told the kid. He huffed. She said, "You don't even ride it anymore, and the noise bothers the neighborhood. Let me make this clear. I do ride it every weekend. I've had that Harley for 12 years. Customized it myself. It's not just a bike. It's part of who I am. And nobody, especially not some entitled HOA lady, is taking it from me." I walked over to Karen, who was now on my lawn like it belonged to her. "What is this?" She didn't even blink. "That motorcycle is an eyesore. And your engine's loud enough to rattle windows." The board agreed. "You should donate it to someone who would appreciate it." "And by someone, you mean your son." "Exactly," she said. "He's turning 17 next month. It'd be perfect." I laughed out loud. "You've lost your mind." That's when her expression shifted. "Fine," she said. "If you won't be neighborly, I'll escalate this." I didn't know what that meant at the time, but I'd soon find out, and it involved police lights, HOA threats, and a meeting with the state attorney. But I wasn't about to be bullied. Not by her, not by her brat. Not by the HOA, because if they wanted a fight, they picked the wrong guy. It was the following Saturday, when things turned from absurd to downright insane. I'd just come back from a short ride. Sun on my back, fresh air in my lungs, and the Harley humming like a dream. I parked it right where I always do, under the oak tree next to my garage. I didn't even have time to take off my helmet before I heard the sirens. 2 police cruisers pulled into my driveway like I just robbed a bank. Doors swung open, and out stepped a pair of officers, hands hovering close to their belts. "Sir, step away from the motorcycle." I blinked. "Excuse me?" "Step away from the vehicle now." I backed up, confused, but compliant. "Is there a problem, officer?" One of them took out a notepad. "We got a report of stolen property on site. A local resident claims you unlawfully took possession of a motorcycle belonging to her minor son. You could have knocked me over with a feather." "Wait, what?" "This is my bike. I have the registration inside. I've owned it for over a decade." Karen came marching over from across the street, like she'd been watching the whole thing unfold from behind her blinds. Her son trailed behind her, arms crossed like he'd been wronged by the universe. "There it is," she shouted, pointing dramatically at my Harley like it was a crime scene. "That's the one. He promised to give it to my son, then he backed out. That's theft, right?" I laughed because I thought she had to be joking. The officer didn't. "Do you have proof of ownership?" "Yeah," I said, walking toward the house. "I've got it inside." "Sir, please stay where you are." I froze. "Seriously?" The second officer stepped between me and the door. "We'll retrieve it. Just tell us where the papers are." As they went inside with my permission, Karen leaned in and whispered with a smug grin, "You could have just done the right thing. Now the whole neighborhood's going to know what kind of man you really are." I wanted to scream, but I kept my cool. The officers came back a few minutes later with my title and registration in hand. "It's his," one said, clearly annoyed. "Clean title. Been in his name for years." Karen's smirk vanished. Her son scowled. "This isn't fair." He said I could have it. I said no such thing. I snapped. Karen suddenly flustered. Changed tactics. Well, maybe he didn't steal it, but he lied to us. That's fraud. Even the cops were done by that point. But Karen, she wasn't finished. After the police left with no charges, no warnings, and 2 very annoyed officers, Karen stormed back to her house with her son in tow. But I knew better than to relax. She wasn't the kind to walk away quietly. And sure enough, just 3 days later, I got a letter taped to my door. It was from the HOA, notice of violation, community disruption, and failure to comply with neighborhood courtesy standards. Basically, Karen had filed a formal complaint with the HOA board, claiming my motorcycle was a nuisance, that I'd made false verbal agreements to transfer it to her son, and that my hostile attitude had created a toxic environment for the neighborhood. I wanted to laugh, but it wasn't funny anymore. This wasn't just a busybody being annoying. This was a coordinated attempt to intimidate me into giving up something that was mine legally, rightfully, and personally. So, I made a call, not to the HOA, not to Karen. I called an old friend, Mark. He worked at the state attorney's office. We weren't close, but we'd served in the same veterans group a few years back. I told him everything from the moment the kid tried to claim my Harley to the bogus police call, and now this HOA stunt. Mark took it seriously. Sounds like she's trying to weaponize the HOA to force a private property transfer. That's not just harassment. It might be civil coercion. That got my attention. He advised me to write a full statement, attach all my documentation, photos of the bike, timestamps of ownership, even the HOA letter, and bring it in for review. I spent the next 24 hours compiling everything. I even found footage from my doorbell cam of the kid pointing at my bike and saying, "Mom said you'd give it to me." That was gold. When I walked into the state attorney's office with my folder, I felt like I was loading ammo into a cannon. The receptionist looked surprised when I said I was dropping off materials for review until she saw the size of the folder. Later that week, Mark called me back. "She filed a complaint here too," he said. "Claimed you tried to swindle her son with false promises. We've reviewed both sides, and there's a chance this goes to mediation. But don't worry, you're not the one under the microscope anymore." That was when I realized Karen had played the wrong game with the wrong guy, and I had the law on my side. Now, the HOA meeting was set for Thursday evening. Normally, I wouldn't waste time on something like that. But this time, I made sure to show up early, dressed sharp, with a folder in hand and a calm smile on my face. Karen was already there, holding court with a few other board members, like she owned the place. Her son sat nearby, arms crossed, looking like the world owed him a motorcycle. She spotted me and rolled her eyes. "Oh, you decided to show." "Wouldn't miss it," I replied calmly, settling into my seat as more neighbors began to arrive. Once the meeting started, the HOA president, a soft-spoken man named Bill, called for new business. Karen immediately raised her hand like a kid desperate to answer a question. "I'd like to formally request action against Mr. Owens for failure to fulfill a verbal commitment. Intentional community disturbance and inappropriate conduct during interactions with myself and my son," she said with dramatic flair. Bill adjusted his glasses. "You're referring to the situation with the motorcycle?" "Yes. He misled my son, promised him the bike, then reneged, and when I tried to mediate, he became aggressive. It demanded that I either surrender the motorcycle as restitution or prepare to face civil action. It was laughable until I saw the signature. It was real. She had actually hired an attorney. That's when I realized something important. She needed this win. This wasn't about the bike anymore. This was about ego, pride, and control. She couldn't stand the fact that someone like me, quiet, independent, and unbothered by her fake power, had stood his ground. So, I called Mark at the state attorney's office again and read him the letter. He chuckled. She's bluffing. But if she's trying to initiate civil action based on something the board already dismissed, she's opening herself up to liability, especially with false claims. We drafted a response together, a formal legal rebuttal backed with all my evidence and a little something extra, a counter notice, warning her of harassment and the possibility of filing a civil claim of my own. I sent it through a lawyer I knew from my veterans group. The moment she got the response, she went silent completely. No knocks at the door, no letters, no smug waves across the lawn. It was like watching a balloon slowly deflate. But the neighborhood, oh, they were wide awake now. People started talking. Turns out, I wasn't the only one Karen had gone after over the years. She'd harassed people about paint colors, lawn lengths, noise levels, even a neighbor's service dog. Everyone had just been too tired or afraid to stand up to her. But now they had a spark. At the next HOA meeting, a petition was brought forward, signed by over half the neighborhood to remove Karen from the HOA board for misuse of authority and harassment. She didn't even show up to fight it. She was voted out, gone. And me? I still have my Harley, still park it under the same oak tree, still ride it every weekend. But now when I rev that engine, nobody complains because the woman who thought she could take it all from me ended up losing everything herself. And that's how I turned the tables on HOA Karen and kept my Harley. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like the video, leave a comment sharing your thoughts or your own crazy neighbor stories, and subscribe for more unbelievable real-life tales. Don't forget to hit the bell so you never miss a new video. Thanks for watching.